Hey everyone, it's Noah, and I'm back again with a deck profile, this time focusing on Genesis Regalia. And this deck's a lot of fun, and the support that's been coming out over the past sets has just been building on it more and more. And now we finally have a deck that I think is super playable, and you can splash it with Himiko and stuff if you don't really want to go full Regalia, but this build that I'm showcasing is really showcasing all of the new cards and is really focused on Divine Gauge and the full Regalia build. So that's the deck you're going to see today. So starting off, we have grade ones. The grade three searcher is important. You want to see number one, your grade threes, and number two, certain grade threes depending on your matchups. So this just helps you guarantee that. Doesn't really play into what the deck does, but it's just a card for searching. Then we have a card that is going to see a lot of play, I think, in a lot of Genesis lists, but this is a promo card. Vanguard Rearguard on place, check top two, one goes to soul, one goes back on top of deck. So it fills your soul up, which you definitely need in this deck because Divine Gauge comes out of the soul. So you need the soul to be hefty, and she helps with that and also gives you kind of a scry ability, a little bit of OTT flavor. And then her second ability is once per turn when Vanguard attacks, if it's grade three, you give this plus 5k, give the Vanguard plus 5k, so it's just extra power, helps push for, damage in the later game, which is important because the Vanguard pressure can be kind of low, depends which Vanguard you're on, so just giving that extra 10k to the board is nice. Then we have a new Regalia card. This is rearguard only abilities, but when it attacks or boosts, you Divine Gauge it. So Divine Gauging is simply taking a card from the soul and putting it under that card face down. Counts as a gauge. So if you're familiar with Tachikaze at all, it's similar to that, but better. And then the second ability is once per turn, you discard a Divine Gauge from her, soul charge 3, which is really nice because then that keeps your soul stacked for your Divine Gauging. And then also, if you have a Regalia Vanguard, you can retire her and countercharge. And you do counterblast a little bit in this deck. It's not super, super heavy, but you can run out, so it's nice to just have that option available. And then I'm running one copy of the grade 1 Artemis. This is an old card, but I just tossed it in for possible retiring. Sometimes you just get matchups where you need to pop something on the opponent's field, and she lets you do that. So she has the same ability when she boosts or attacks, you can Divine Gauge her. And then she has a second ability where you can counterblast one and discard a Divine Gauge, and then pop something in the same column as her. So you can just, if there's something on the board or the opponent's side of the board that is just threatening or annoying that you can't really get rid of, maybe it's a back row unit, you can just pop it. So I like having her in here. It can kind of be anything. I just wanted to tech her in just to have the sort of retire capability available to me. So grade 2's another great card. This is a new card. And same thing, rearguard only abilities, but when placed, you Divine Gauge her, so that's nice. You don't have to do anything for it. And then either when she boosts or when she attacks, after the end of the battle, you move all the Divine Gauges to another unit, put her into the soul, and then draw a card. So she replenishes herself while also becoming a Divine Gauge in a sense because she goes into the soul, and then she moves her Divine Gauges so they don't go to waste. So she's just a really nice card. Definitely just one of those cards that if you watched my deck profile on Stand Peony for Neonectar, I love cards that replenish themselves, and she definitely does that. So it's just a really good resource management card. Next, we have Norn. She's kind of the MVP of the deck. She enables multi-attacking. If you've been playing Yggdrasil in anything, if it's been Himiko or in your Regalia deck, then you've definitely seen her. So her first ability is Vanguard Rearguard. Once per turn, counterblast one, draw a card, choose one of your rear guards, Divine Gauge it, and if you did, you soul charge 2. And her second ability is once per turn, if she boosts a unit with Regalia in its name, you discard a Divine Gauge from her, discard a card from your hand, restand the unit that she was boosting with Regalia in its name, and it gets drive -1 and plus 10k. So this enables multi-attacking. You can use it behind Vanguard, you can also use it behind a rear guard, and just stack your triggers on it and keep swinging and get those multi-attacks in. So she's a really strong card. You definitely need to be playing her. She also helps you Divine Gauge stuff, so that's also important. And then finally for my grade 2s, I'm running the grade 2 Artemis. This is just a really powerful, beefy card. So when its attack hits, you can Divine Gauge it, but also it gets plus 10k for every Divine Gauge it has. And that becomes crazy because you're Divine Gauging so much. This can just be a huge unit, and again, it can be a booster because of our grade 3s we're running, so this can just sit in the back row and kind of just keep boosting something. You're not going to really have it as an attacker, I mean, you can, but Norn does not allow it to restand because it's not a regalia unit, so you can't restand her. So it's kind of better, I think, to just have her in the back row and just keep boosting with her, and every turn just keep putting Divine Gauges under her and just making the columns bigger and bigger. Again, this is just a really power focused deck, more or less, so she's, I think, great in this deck. Then moving on to grade 3s, we have Yggdrasil, which is a card you've definitely seen a lot of in Genesis period, and especially in a Divine Gauge deck. So her first ability is Vanguard Rearguard. All of your rearguards with Divine Gauge get boost, and if she's on Vanguard, then you have blanket immunity for all of those rearguards. So basically, if you're facing against like a board wipe deck or something that's like very non-target related, she's a good Vanguard to have. Most of the time, Angelic is going to be enough, but certain matchups you might want to ride into her because it'll protect your board, and you really do want to protect your board with this deck because losing the Divine Gauges really sucks because it takes time to build that up. So to just get your board wiped or to get units popped is really annoying. So you definitely want to maintain it. And luckily, both of our grade 3s do that. So if you need that blanket immunity, though, she's the one to have. And then her second ability is Vanguard Rearguard once per turn. Counterblast 1, search your deck for a Norn, which is, again, her. And then you call it to Rearguard, and then you choose up to 2 of your units and Divine Gauge them. So that's really, really nice. Just, again, helps move that Divine Gauge process along. Make sure you get those big numbers. You can Divine Gauge your, your Artemis. Just get everything really ready to go, basically, for all of your mechanics. And again, this is usually a good target for Norn if you're boosting with Norn. So she's really good. And again, it's Vanguard Rearguard for the boost, so she doesn't have to be your Vanguard to get the boost ability. She only has to be your Vanguard to get the complete coverage of your board from opponent's effects. And then finally we have Angelica. This is a new grade 3, and she's all Vanguard abilities, so usually you're going to want to ride her as the Vanguard. But again, if you're facing a board wipe deck, you might want to ride into Yggdrasil just to make sure your field's okay. But she does have an ability that all your rearguards with Divine Gauge can't be chosen by opponent's card effects, so most of the time that's going to be enough. That's going to give you enough coverage. But again, there's certain decks that just board wipe, so you want to make sure you know your matchups. And then she also gives everything with Divine Gauge plus 5k. And it's not per Divine Gauge, it's just a general 5k, but still, power on board is great. The second ability is when it attacks, you choose up to 2 of your rear guards and Divine Gauge them. That's simple, straightforward, very easy, and very powerful. And then at the end of your opponent's turn, her third ability is you can discard 5 Divine Gauges from your board and heal damage, which I haven't used too much yet. I haven't really had to, but it's nice to have that ability and to, just be able to survive a little bit longer. Sometimes that really makes a difference. So so that's pretty much the whole deck. For triggers are pretty straightforward. It's not too complicated. For heal, 4 draw PGs, and then 8 crit. I was thinking of upping it for some more draw, maybe doing 6 draw and 6 crit, but the crit's really scary when you have restanding units because you can just throw everything on them and then they're restanding with crits. So I like the crits so far. I don't think you really need more draw, but if you wanted to, you could. So that's pretty much the whole deck. There's not much to it. It's pretty straightforward, very easy to play. Again, you're just trying to get those Divine Gauges out on the board, protect your board, and then just keep attacking, restanding, and pushing for a game. When it comes to markers, I've really only tried it with Force 1 so far. I haven't really playtested much with Force 2. With the amount of power you can get, Force 2 might be something that I consider. So I'm going to try it out, and I'll mention whether it works or not. But so far, just having the power has been enough. And again, with the critical triggers, you're hitting crits anyway. So maybe if I reduced it down to 6 crit, I might try running it with Force 2 just so I have that crit pressure. But but so far Force 1's been working great. I don't think it's a meta-defining deck by any means, but it's definitely a lot of fun, and they definitely supported the mechanic enough to make it super impactful. So if you enjoy this mechanic, then maybe give it a try. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on it too. If you have a different list, what you're playing. And if you can subscribe, that would help us out a lot. We have some cool things coming, and especially with D-Series on the way. So stay tuned for all that, and I'll see y'all next time.